There's some interesting observations coming from the Karmelo Anthony trial, the outcome of the Karmelo Anthony trial. Here are a couple that I found very interesting, and these posts will mostly have to do with his parents and Dominique Alexander. And so you start to see a reason, a pattern of how Karmelo Anthony ended up in this situation. Here's the first clip we'll take a look at. And so this is a tweet from Brooke Taylor, and she says, Karmelo Anthony, who was convicted of murdering 17-year-old Austin Metcalf, he was sentenced to 35 years in prison. During victim impact statements, Metcalf's mother told Anthony he should consider himself lucky to receive 35 years, saying she has been sentenced to a lifetime without her son. Anthony's parents, Karmelo's parents, who have been in courtroom for the whole trial, did not return to hear the impact statements or sentencing. That's very interesting. They left that boy there alone to face the sentencing and the impact statements from the Metcalfs. They weren't even in the courtroom. And that just shows you the fake level of support that even his parents had for him when he really needed him there. And that's when he broke down the motions when he was given the sentence. And the only person there for him was the lawyer who asked the judge to let him take him outside the courtroom and get his composure back. And the judge said, no, things move differently now that he's been convicted. And so here is a reporter reporting on that, in Sean Hannity.
She's in McKinney tonight with all the latest details. Brooke, I've seen you there all day. Now he's been sentenced.
Hi, Sean. It's been a long day, but to be honest, this all happened relatively quickly. It took jurors just about 3 hours to deliberate and find Karmelo Anthony guilty of murder. And then later, they sentenced him to 35 years behind bars. He's going to be eligible for parole after serving half that sentence. Sean, he faced up to 99 years behind bars. Again, quick little recap here for you. He's been convicted now of murdering 17-year-old Austin Metcalf. He was stabbed during a high school track meet last April. Now, there have been no cameras allowed inside of this courtroom, but reporters tell us when this verdict was read, Anthony was seen crying. He was visibly shaking. During victim impact statement, Austin Metcalf's mother told Anthony, you should be lucky that you're sentenced to 35 years because she says she's been sentenced to a lifetime without her son. Now, we'll take you to outside of the courthouse. This crowd of roughly 100 people, many of them Anthony supporters, they were out here getting rowdy. Tensions were running high at times. We saw at least one fight break out. Now, many supporters have made it clear they think that race played a role in this case. One woman, I heard her make this really shocking comment a little while ago, saying Metcalf and his twin brother are, quote, domestic racist terrorists. Prosecutors, though, they have made it clear this case has nothing to do with race or self-defense. And notably, several of the student witnesses who testified in this case said that Anthony provoked this confrontation. Well, they were black teammates of Austin Metcalf, and they were the...
And so there's the first clip discussing Karmelo Anthony's mother. Here's another clip also highlighting Karmelo's mother. This is also from Twitter. This is actually Dominique Alexander. This is the representative that they chose.
That a black boy was allowed, not one black soul on a jury, an all white jury, convicted him in 2 to 3 hours. We know that they did not prove their case. They are currently sentencing Karmelo Anthony, but we know that the Next Generation Action Network put the first $10,000 towards an appellate attorney. And we will fight Collin County like hell. I respected this process. I respected this process.
He respected the process.
I allowed and called for peace in this process. But Black America should be very upset about what went on today. Now, before all of the internet lawyers and before all of the interpretation of the situation, I'm only an advocacy leader. I'm not an attorney. I can only help families be able to navigate these processes.
And I think that's enough of him, because the point is not about what he's saying. The point I'm making is, why would his family, this supposedly successful black family, sidle up with a man like Dominique Alexander. It really calls into question their intelligence when they would find themselves choosing him as a advocate for their family. I'm not even sure if they needed an advocate, but if they did, they chose poorly with Dominique Alexander. And so here's another interesting tweet about the Karmelo Anthony family, the parents, and this is also from Twitter. The most stunning thing was not only the money squandered or the victim signaling via race card throwing, hence Dominique Alexander. Karmelo Anthony was abandoned by his parents, left to stand alone during sentencing and victim impact statements. That was truly the turning point of understanding why Karmelo was in this position. And that stuck out to me. I couldn't believe that at this lowest point, when this would be his last time really seeing his mother in person and close up like that, and not in a prison uniform looking, she won't see him like this ever again. And in the sentencing and the impact statements, she could not be there. His father could not be there. And so the boy was left alone there to stand alone to go through all of that. And that has to be a very low point for him. He going through that by himself, 18, 19, however old he is. One would have expected his mother to be there. And the other this is someone else with their last thoughts on Karmelo Anthony. The defense only called 6 witnesses and rested abruptly. The only person to speak on his behalf during the punishment phase was his mother. The defense didn't even think to prepare him to testify on his own behalf. His father did not speak for him. There were no teachers, counselors, church members, no one willing to discuss his character in court and plead for him to have another chance at life. Nobody could vouch he was really a good kid and was going to be a contributing member of society someday. The jury heard closing statements, deliberated, found him guilty, then completed the punishment phase all in one day. In other words, there was no way to adequately defend or humanize Karmelo Anthony. And this is a picture of Karmelo Anthony after he cut his hair off, that he wanted to appeal to the jury and show himself in a more humanizing look. And so this is Karmelo Anthony in his booking photo. But what I also found interesting is that I was looking at his father and mother as they were leaving the courts. And what I found interesting about the father in particular, and I'll see if I can find these videos, that the father never cut his hair. So he showed up to court with the long flowing dreadlocks, but he told his son to cut his hair. It probably would have behooved him to cut his hair too, show a unified front. This is a nice, well-groomed family, but he never cut his hair. And I'll show you this video of his father, and this is them as they were leaving the courtroom. And you'll see that once they got into the car, it's a luxury SUV, luxury, I think it's an Acura. The mother was screaming racism and all this stuff. But his hair was as long as it was, and longer than when the trial first began. And so here is that video. Here's that video. Here's one of the videos. This is his mother outside of the courtroom after the verdict has been announced. And you'll see it. That's Karmelo Anthony's mother right there. And it was Karmelo Anthony's mother right there screaming racist, bias. And so they can't accept the jury's verdict. And here was another video, I want to say, of Karmelo Anthony's mother and his father. And there was a video of him with the long hair. Right here is video of Karmelo Anthony and his family. Karmelo Anthony's family coming out of the courthouse. This is, I think, Dominique Alexander. His mother should be to the left, and I think his father's in the rear. If you remember, they didn't show up for the victim statements. They didn't show up for the sentencing. They weren't in the courtroom for Karmelo at that point. So here is his family, Karmelo's family, coming out of the courtroom. So you see them immediately putting these heart signs up. Heart signs. And the tall guy in the back, that is Karmelo Anthony's father. There's him right there. And maybe Karmelo's brother or someone. And so again, this is Karmelo Anthony's father right here. And you'll notice that he has long dreadlocks in his head. And that's interesting. chose to cut Karmelo's dreads off for the trial, his long spiky hair, whatever the style is. But his father showed up every day in the courtroom with these long dreads. His hair is much longer now than it was a year ago. They're putting up the Black Power fist. That's Karmelo's father right there, if I'm not mistaken. Again, the long dreadlocks that they cut off their own son, they wore him into the sentencing, into all the hearing, the cases.
Back off.
There's the heart sign here. This is Karmelo's mother throwing up the heart sign from the passenger side of an Acura. Yeah, prejudice, racist, bias. And again, this is the family that didn't feel strong enough to come to the victim witness statements, the sentencing. But right outside of the courtroom, they're screaming prejudice, racist, bias while riding away in a luxury Acura car. The father, he's free to grow his dreads as long as he wants. But his son, when facing a jury of his peers, he told him to cut the hair off, or they was advised to cut his son's hair off. So again, now we're getting to see like the parents behind the Karmelo, the good boy, the 3.7 GPA. Some interesting coverage of Karmelo Anthony, his mother, his father, the people that they chose to be around them, to represent them. And so it's not surprising the outcome, considering a lot of the bad decisions were made, starting with Karmelo Anthony stabbing Austin Metcalf. Once again, I am the urban landlord, John Galt. Thank you for watching.